You're tuned in to RX Radio.
All right, guys, welcome back. Another episode of RX Radio. Special one today. Before we get into the episode, wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming Prescript Barbell course. This classes are going to start on March 28th, if I'm not mistaken. Still time to sign up, so do head on over to pre-script.com. That's pre-script.com. Register. It's 9 weeks of lectures, 9 weeks of labs, free month to the Prescript Collective, plus the free barbell manual, which is, I've read a lot of books on barbell training, and I've written a book on barbell training. It's an extremely comprehensive manual that goes into setup, stabilization, execution, exercise selection, exercise variation. We put a lot into this course, Stu Locke and myself. I'm very excited to reintroduce this one. So do get on that. One more thing before we jump to today's guest. Go to the Prescript site if you're not interested in the barbell manual. That's cool. If you're interested in getting a small tidbit of information that can make you a better coach, a better athlete, do sign up for the Prescript newsletter. These have been going out every Friday, and they're fucking money. There's something that I look forward to every single week. So do hop on that, leave your email, sign up for the newsletter. Trust me, worth it. Now to today's guest, Don Saladino. It's been about 4 years since I met Don at a Brazilian steakhouse somewhere in New York. We just sat next to each other, having dinner, celebrating a birthday of a mutual friend, and immediately hit it off. And you'll see why. Don has to be one of the most genuinely charismatic people you will ever come across in your entire life. You guys listen to this podcast, you're going to be hooked. Don has been like family. Don is family. He's been there for me, a phone call away. I've slept at his house. I've slept in his gym. It is really, I don't think I can put into words the impact that this guy has had on my life. And trying to put it into words might actually it might diminish his effect. That's how profound a human being Don is. Shirt off your back kind of guy. He's one of the most experienced, low-key killers, an absolute animal. But I mean that in a way that's not just like business and training, because like my boy stays shredded. Like Don is cover shoot ready within a week at any point, but still plays hockey 3-4 times a week, still goes out and eats the foods that he likes to eat. He's an absolute animal when it comes to like those conventional aspects of when we sort of denote that title to someone. But he carries that with that, and this is something I'm a firm believer in, is how you do one thing is how you do everything. He carries that with him in family, relationships, parenting, like to be able to be a fly on the wall and watch. He's just an operator. So learned so much from Don, more so when he doesn't know, he's teaching me shit. And guys, like, listen to the podcast, but listen to read in between the lines. Like, this guy kept for 17 years in the most expensive real estate in the biggest city, in the most, saturated fitness market in the world. He will open your eyes to put perspective in when you think you have problems around your business. Like, the first 5 minutes will blow your socks off. The stuff this guy had to go through. But he did it with a smile on his face. He did it because he loves the barbell more than anyone I think I've ever met, and that's including myself. So guys, enjoy the episode. Prescript Barbell up live. If you want to come hang, me and Stu Locke are going to be doing our thing starting March 28th. So it's pre-script.com. I believe it's actually on the homepage. If not, newsletter, do head and sign up. Make sure you go follow Don. If you do nothing else, it's pretty incredible to see what he does across the board. Just like I said, a smooth operator, absolute killer, great friend, family, brother, mentor. Don, appreciate your time, man. Guys, I hope you enjoy the episode. We'll see you next week.
Are you like, if you have showers in there, they want to make sure that that you're not opening some illegal parlor where they're running hand jobs in the bathrooms. I mean, it's just but it's just like it's like you can't make this shit up. So when sometimes I'll get calls from people in Wichita, and they're like, "Hey, I'm opening a club." I'm like, "What's the price per foot?" They're like, $5. I'm like, "What do you mean?"
That's free, right? That's free. You're opening a gym for free.
Yeah, I'm like, how are you how is this even possible? Like my real estate taxes the last year were $150,000 for just real estate taxes. Like my parking was $800 a month. Like it's next level shit. So the talk sales are vanity, profit is sanity. It's basically like saying you do not have to have this crazy brick and mortar facility. Like there's other things. Like how do you attract brands? How do you structure deals with them? Even if you have no social following, how does that even become interesting to a brand? Like, I think social media, I think it's good, but I also think partially it's somewhat of a joke. Like everyone's trying to play this algorithm game and they're all like, oh, I'm not growing. I'm not like, what's your email list, man? Like, let's get really simple and granular. Like it's like, you'll get 122% ROI off of your email list over social media. Like that's 4 times. I'm sorry, it's 122 times over what you would get on average from social media. Like, why aren't we focusing on our email list? Why are we also focused on like how many followers do we have today? And then you listen to like coaches and they're like, oh, I'm not growing. I'm like, dude, grow up, man. Like seriously, like what are you focused on? It's crazy. I'm sorry, you get me going on this.
No,
shit.
you're good. Is your ability to identify that, do you think, stem from your ability or your forced hand of having to deal with so much granular shit in a brick and mortar? Like you can walk into a digital space and be like, all right, where are my big rocks to turn over? Because I had to, because I was on fucking Broadway in New York for 17 years. Like, I
think so. I mean, the people who weren't in my situation are going to say, no, that's complete bullshit. But again, like, you know, when you're sitting there every single day and you legitimately, like we've all been kicked in the balls, like physically, right? Like someone's kicked you in the balls at some time in your life. Like imagine having that done to you every single day. Like there's this level of resiliency and there's this level of knowledge that you're going to gain that I believe people who are in Harvard Business School will have never a fucking idea. They will never have an idea what it's like to lose, 6 figures a month for a year straight. Like when you literally, someone cuts an artery on there and you're watching in the movie, blood's shooting out and you're like, ah! Like you're like, it's crazy. But it also develops this level of toughness and it also develops this level of creativity to where when you are sitting there going, holy shit, I got to come up with $75,000 overnight or I'm fucked. I'm going to miss payroll. I'm going to miss, American Express is sending a hitman after me. Like you start really thinking about ways to break down different areas of your business and reassess how do I make this work rather than, adjusting your lifestyle to the business and start cutting back to make it. You start also thinking differently. Well, how do I increase revenue streams out of my business to confined with my lifestyle, right? You get what I'm saying? So I really think I would never have learned this stuff if I didn't get put into this situation and I wasn't screwed at a certain time, because it really enabled me to surround myself with some pretty brilliant people and people who had a vested interest in my success. And then you learn from them and then you figure out how to get entrepreneurial. I mean, it's that simple.
How much of it do you think, Don, as well, like you had mentioned, you gave the example of like someone from Wichita calling you, right? And like you're from New York. And how much of it do you think is just like the nature and nurture of existing in an environment that moves pretty much in the 1% of the speed of the rest of the country you live in? Like you guys move fast. Like it's very much a reactionary environment as opposed to somebody who strolls to work for 25 minutes.
I think it's the same analogy as if like you or Jordan walked into a gym or I walked into a gym and there's a bunch of putzes sitting there like with 135 on the bar and they're like, and then you come in as the big man and you're like, yeah, I can move weight, but is it really the same thing as if you have Marcus Leone standing next to you ripping, 880 off the floor? Like there's this intoxicating, in a positive way, there's this environment. When you throw yourself into this environment, I think you start finding out what's actually in your basement. Right? Like, is it really in there? Like Steffi Cohen's next to you squatting more, like you're gonna step your game up. Like you follow what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. I just feel like everyone's pumping articles about this now. Like you are, your 5 people that you surround yourself with, that's who who you're. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like if you surround yourself with winners, you put yourself into an environment that's going to enable you to really elevate your game and stay on your toes. I don't know, man. Would I have learned as much as I have learned if I was, opening some gym in, an area of the Midwest that's just not very competitive and everything's coming pretty easy, like, I don't think I would have.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I wouldn't have. Like, listen, a lot of smart people are running very successful businesses. And for a second, I'm not saying you have to get kicked in the balls or go through what I went through to be. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that there is this level of grit that you're going to develop by kind of, going into that dungeon to train, opposed to showing up to an Equinox and being around a bunch of people who are checking their cell phones every 5 seconds, So that's my opinion again.
Well, how much of that perspective can you begin to draw from like your increased profile of clientele over the years, right? Because it seems like, you put a step forward and you take a risk and you're rewarded with the presence or a client or a contractor who's taken a bigger risk, right? Like, I feel like you have like this leapfrog, like kind of being familiar with your past history where you have this like leapfrog of like, you take a big risk and open this club, but then you get rewarded by being surrounded by people who are taking bigger risks. Right, like you did a story maybe 6 months ago, retelling a story from that I think it was Luca was telling about one of his clients that had taken a huge risk and gotten paid off or something to those lines. But you told me a story that you didn't tell, and I wish you did, about one of your clients who had just merged a deal in Europe. And they took 2 connecting flights. They sent their private jet home, and they took. Do you know the story I'm talking about? Can you tell it?
Was it the one where he sat and coached?
Yeah, but the guy was worth like $1 billion or something.
I can't mention his name, and I can't even tell you what he does or what he owns because people would know. But he literally was. You almost have the story exactly right. He was flying back from London, and he was going through a divorce at the time, and which doesn't even narrow it down. I mean, everyone's divorced now. But he basically changed. I think he changed his ticket. I don't think he was supposed to fly back private. He changed his ticket, and he says, "Bob, put me in the back of the plane," because he knew he had his head so far up his ass that he sat in the middle seat. This is a guy who owns planes. He owns not 1, not 2. Not 5 or 10 planes. You know what I'm talking about, like hangars. And he said he flew in the middle seat of the back of the plane to tell himself that he doesn't get his head out of his ass. This is how it's going to be for him. And he rode back 6-7 hours staring at the front seat. He didn't listen to music. He didn't do work. He just sat like this as punishment. And I thought it was beautiful, actually. And I think that, I don't know, man. I just, there's that old world, like, fight that people are just losing right now. I'm like, I don't know, even with these coaches calling me like, how do I become a gazillionaire online? I'm like, well, have you coached yet? Like, seriously? Like, Jordan's coached? Like, have you guys have been on the floor? I see you guys posting. I see you guys teaching. I see you guys coaching. You guys are coaches. And I believe that it's the first thing. When I was at Perform Better Speaking, people are raising their hand like, well, I'm just getting started. What do? I'm like, clean up weights. Like, my favorite story is that did you hear that Mark Mania story? Did you hear what one of my posts, Jordan?
That may have been the one we were talking about. Yeah, go.
So I'm sorry, that was another story about the first class. The Mark Mania story was amazing. Mark is working, I think it's in an Equinox, and Mark was a professional football player one time, played a couple years in the league, turns around, gets his job training, is walking through the gym one day, sees a piece of trash, goes over and picks up the piece of trash. And there's one guy standing on a step mill, walking on the step mill. And Mark throws a piece of trash where there's no one in the gym. The guy goes, hey, come over here. Mark walks over there. Mark's got a great build on him, good looking guy. Mark goes, yes, sir. Guy goes, what are you doing? Mark goes, picking up a piece of trash. The guy goes, why? What are you owning this club? And Mark's like, no, I'm a trainer here. He goes, well, why are you picking up the piece of trash? He goes, well, I saw a piece of trash on the floor, sir, and I feel like I have a sense of ownership over this club, and I'm proud of this facility that I work in, and I don't want there to be trash in my club. And the guy looks at him and goes, okay, interesting. He goes, all right, just wanted to ask. Sorry, have a nice day. Well, Mark's about to open his 10th club now, and that man on the step mill is his lead investor.
No way.
It's Anatomy?
It's Anatomy.
Yeah, down in Miami.
Down in Miami. So, and I'm listening to Mark, and I'm like, Mark's telling me about how he's in the car one day with his investor begging him not to hand over the keys. I went through the same thing. I remember being on with my team, being like, guys, people just don't know about it. We can make this happen. Float me more, please, like begging. Like going through that shit is tough. Like I almost missed 37 straight payrolls, literally down to the dime handing checks. Like that's scary shit when you go through that. And I think it's unnecessary. I'm not telling anyone that they have to turn around and be, oh, well, Don's saying you got to get kicked in the butt. Like, no, like that's like, there's got to be an easier way. Yes, there is. But sometimes you're just not in a situation where you can predict certain things. The pandemic, 2007, 2008, Lehman Brothers and Goldman Sachs, and Bear Stearns closes, Lehman closes. Half of my business is corporate events. I'm making cash twice a week, probably 20 grand cash a week through hosting corporate events. That's 80 grand a month. Gone. I just lost close to 900 grand in business. Gone. So then you start bleeding. Then you start saying, all right, am I going to close? Am I going to fold? Or do I have to recreate myself? And when you're sitting there and your heart's racing and you're going to bed at night, you're holding your dogs going, holy shit. Like it changes your perspective on things. So yeah, that Mark Menu story, I love it. I'll tell that story for the rest of my life.
But I think equally as impressive though, for someone who can, survival instinct, it's an instinct. But I don't think thriving is an instinct, because I think it's equally as impressive for you to be able to sit there, not have this like 80K cash flow twice a week corporate event revenue stream, to get that pulled out from under your legs in '08, as it is now to be able to just walk into your backyard, into the barn, and still be able to push it, right? To still be able to keep the foot on the throttle and like keep the engine turning when you don't have a gun to your head. I think that's equally as impressive to me.
Yeah, because
well, that's why I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, for me, and this is something I thought about when I was an in-person trainer at a gym, because like I did decent. I had 18 full-time clients. Like I didn't have to work anymore, because once you have clients, like the job is over really as a personal trainer. It's like I just go in, I get to do the easiest job in the world now. But for me, that was the question in my mind always was, failure is such a more familiar feeling because it's inevitable. If you do nothing, you'll fail. But success is always uncomfortable because you don't really know where it starts or where it eventually ends.
Yeah, and once it starts happening, once you've gone through enough failure, you're like almost superstitious. You're like, all right, this is nice. This is really nice, but I want this to continue. And I think, that's when work starts getting fun. I'm not saying that the last 15 years owning several clubs have been a complete, downfall. Like some of the best things I have in my life from a business standpoint has come from my clubs, and some of the biggest relationships I've ever created have come from my clubs, and the biggest learning curves I ever have come from my clubs. So yeah, I think that has been, but that's been a huge, it's a thing. I was having a conversation with Ryan Reynolds about it. When he saw me pivot, he reached out to me and he's like, hey man, really, really proud of you. I see what you're doing. Like this is, he gave me like a nice compliment. I'm like, thanks man, just following in your footsteps type of thing. I'm like, and at the time it was when I was pivoting from drive, and I'm like, oh man, psyched to be out of that place. And he's like, yeah man, but don't ever forget what that place gave you. Mm-hmm. And I kind of stopped for a second. I was like, he's right. I got to show some respect. I think at the time I was like, I knew it was time to get out. I knew I had this opportunity. I was running, and it was almost like that. It was almost like that relationship that you were in that like went toxic, and suddenly you're like bashing it, right? When like the reality is you got involved with it for a specific reason. Like there were some good things about it, like showed a little respect. So yeah, I mean, Ryan kind of giving me that backhand definitely helped me out. It was again, that's why he is who he is. But yeah, work now has become fun, and I think what's even more fun about it is just the opportunity. It's like, yeah, listen, guys, money's great. We all want to make lots of it, right? But Jordan, you know better than anyone. Like, you love the money part. Killian, you love the money part. But you also love creating. Mm-hmm. You love building. You love being a part of, like, laying those bricks and seeing it work out. And when you're sitting there and you walk into a pre-script course and, there might be 30, 40, 50 people there, like, that's a pretty nice feeling, especially when you're going to different countries. Like I know, Jordan, you are especially. But I think that's part of the game, right? It's one thing to make money, but it's also another thing to make money when you're doing something that you believe in and you really love. Yeah,
you said to me once, and I don't know if you remember, it was early. We were training at Bev's. We were moving around, warming up. It was freezing. And we were in like the boxing ring thing. And you
Derek Panza.
Yeah, and you told me like the paraphrase was like it's okay to run scared. Like there's a value in running scared, because that was like that's how I felt for years. It's like I've just been almost to your point. It's like the kick of the balls thing. It's like it's probably not the best way to do it. There's probably a way to do it, but if you find yourself in that situation, it's actually a huge plus. So like most people, look at running scared as like a negative sentiment. But you said, like, to me, you're like, some advice that was imparted down to me. There was 3 things. And the one that really stuck in my brain was like, you know, it's what I mean. You'll tell it better, but like that was
running scared. It was it was from my grandfather. Run scared, try harder, which sounds kind of corny in a way, and there's no room for complacency. And he would say that to me when I was 12, 13 years old, and I would sit there and roll my eyes.
That's
right,
New York shit right there.
Yeah, it really is, right? But like running scared, it's. You know, some people will disagree with that. It kind of drives me a little crazy too, because I'm hearing all these like self-help gurus now that don't really, I still can't figure out what they're really doing. They're just suddenly experts on everything, right? It's like, you know, but not to bash them, but you know, they're talking about quality of life. And when I wake up in the morning, I sip mint tea and I meditate for 10 minutes. I'm like, you fucking crazy? Like when I wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off. My poor dogs are normally flying in the air. I'm like rushing in the bathroom. I'm on the toilet with a toothbrush in my mouth and I'm checking emails at the same time. Like there is no reading the newspaper in the morning. I got a schedule and like I can make a decision. I can wake up an hour early and do all that stuff. And meditate and drink green tea and read the New York Times and do all this stuff. Or I can focus a little bit more on my additional sleep, which I think is a little bit more important, and get right to it first thing in the morning. So I don't know, man. I don't think there's anything wrong with running scared. I think there is something wrong with complacency, right? So there's no room for complacency. Like if you get complacent, if you do not evaluate yourself, if you do not evaluate your business, you're never going to evolve, right? And try harder. It's just a really like, oh, try harder. It sounds like a stupid Avis commercial, but it's like, come on, man. It's like, guys, like you fucked up, you failed. Like try hard. Whoa, I'm working really hard. Yeah, but you're not working smart. Try harder. Try harder. Like figure it out. If you're not good at the digital marketing end, find someone who it is. If you feel like you don't have any passion and purpose of this area of the business that you have to improve, then why are you forcing it, man? Like go find someone who can handle this end. Well, I don't want to give up more money. Really? Because maybe what will cost you 60 or 80 grand to hire this person to come in might enable you to make 5x what you made last year. So like, you got to be willing to spend money to make money. So I just think that people, you know, and I see it especially with coaches, that they're so obsessed with like continuing to take courses. And I love it. I love continuing education. I've been recommending Jordan's course. I'm like, I tell people, I'm like, if you want to take any course, go take Jordan's course. Like, take the continuing ed. I actually would really like to sit through it. I really would. I don't have the fucking time right now, but I would really love to be a part of it. But the one area that coaches cannot, that they're failing on is that they're spending all their time taking certification courses, and then they're not specifically focusing on other things, like take a webinar on you know, ConvertKit, or take a webinar on how to form an email list or build a website, or just like these simple things that like you have to learn how to do in life to be able to be successful in business, at least if you're working on your own. So I think that's what's been a little fun and interesting in business lately, kind of mentoring some people and helping them out in this area. And now finding out this is another revenue stream for me has been a little bit interesting and different.
Let's not look over the major rocks here. Like, let's not turn over the big rocks, which is, you've been consistently one of the most jacked, in shape people in the fitness industry
that I've ever seen.
But no, it's like, this guy's literally like,
you know,
you can be behind the scenes, you can pull the digital stuff, you can run one of the most successful clubs, privately owned successful clubs in the hardest city in the world to run a business in, while simultaneously doing cover after photo shoot. Because like, well, no, fuck, man, like, because I think on that list that wasn't, you know, because like one of the biggest frustrations we have, and the irony of two guys who spend their entire lives in the continuing education or education space, is telling people to put the iPad down, to put the keyboard down, to put the Zoom call away and go train, spend that extra hour actually training. And it's ironic, and we're both laughing because like I'm thinking about the clips I'll cut for Instagram, and even though it might have a negative effect on the business, it'll have a positive effect on my psyche, because I only want people who have gone through and actually trained. Because one of the most impressive things with you is like, yeah, you know, I got a photo shoot. I'm like, when? Like 4 days. It's like, and you're peeled. Like you're always, it's like, I think of the Josh Bryant quote, you know, the gas station ready type of like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And like, cause your body of work, as impressive as it's been, and as looked up to and aspired to as your career path has become in the industry, most people are still going to look at you and be like, yeah, but fuck, you seen the rig on this guy?
Yeah. But I think like, but that's like
Appreciate it, brother.
That's
Love you,
the
man.
easiest thing with you. It's like if I ever in my life was more than 5'7", or got to be in a Marvel movie and thought at some point I'm gonna have to eat orange juice out of the can and have fucking blades shoot out of my hands, I'm probably gonna need to look like this guy, not like some melted candle who knows how the shoulder works. Like that's not getting you on a single cover, my guy.
Yeah, but you know what too? Like I understand. Like I will openly admit this. Like I take a lot of pride in what I've learned over the last 25 years. I mean, I call Jordan probably every quarter to ask him questions on something, or I'm stealing specific information from him. Like the hip airplane, one of my favorites, right? Like just little things like that I will implement and incorporate into my training, and that's really what's helped me, because I understand the importance of having a physique on you. It does help. But I also, that performance component to me is, I got to be honest, man, it's probably even a bit more important than, being on a cover. The cover end helps, and it is important. But, I mean, I've been doing a lot of stuff with Derek Hansen lately, and we've been, still trying to like improve specific characteristics of my running and just allow my body to feel really young and youthful, and allow myself to be able to go in and push. Because I got to be honest, like, what do I really care about? It's really simple. I just, putting my family aside, when it comes to my training, I want to go downstairs to my fucking dungeon and I want to pull weight till my fucking blood is coming out of my eyes. It's just, for some reason, that is just something I love and enjoy. And just the training element for me is something I love so much. And when I get together with Tone, or hopefully we get to train one day, it's just that aspect of going in. It's that culture of being like, what are we doing? Let's just get on the level and hit it. And I was laughing because when we were down at Hybrid, and me and B-Pack rode down from Tampa, and we had some great conversation. And we show up that morning, and I just literally finished, I think, like a squatting session with George. Oh no, what did we finish? Did we finish? I forgot. We did like a whole session, and then B-Pack comes in. He's like, "You want a deadlift?" And I'm like, "Sure." I'm like, it doesn't matter at this point. Like, let's just go. Like, Ben Pekulski wants to deadlift. Like, let's go. And Jordan's over there pulling, and I see Steffi Cohen, literally blood's coming out of her eyes, and Tone's he's on his 5,000 bicep curl, and Marcus is over there squatting. And when you get in there and you get in that element, for me, that's what it's about. It's just that energy, and it's allowing myself to leave that hour knowing I did something really good for myself, more for here than in here. And I think everything else is just a byproduct of it, right? Like the fact, like my body looks a certain way, well, I eat really well, and I'd like to pay attention to taking care of myself, and that just all comes with that one sensation, that one feeling that I need. And that's my, 90 minutes a day, or my 2 hours a day, whatever it is. It's like, I need that. It's like Tone said it. Tone is my training partner, one of my best friends. It's part of my survival. And I really wish a lot of coaches would start getting a little bit more selfish, a little more self-centered, and saying, my most important client right now is myself. Right? Even when I was training 40 to 61 hours sessions, I remember doing 13 sessions in a day. I remember working those crazy hours, but I would still not take on that additional person because I had to get, even if it was that hour, I had to get in there and I had to do it. Otherwise, it wasn't good for my mental health. So, that's just me, but I also think that's the reason why I've been somewhat successful in this area.
Yeah, like for me, when I worked in a commercial gym, and like same thing, like I was there 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. every day, and the first thing I ever wrote in my day planner, and I used a paper day planner, and I wrote with a pen and paper. And the reason I did this, so this is like a funny story about how I started, but the first thing I wrote in my day planner was my own workout. I had a meeting with like my manager, and he was like, all right, like we're going to do your day planner. And I sat down and opened it, and I quickly wrote in where I was going to work. He's like, what are you writing? I'm like, my workout. And he's like, why is that the first thing you're writing? I was like, because I took this job. I left construction to do this so that I could work out when no one's at the gym. So I'm going to write this in first. And he's like, all right, do your thing. But I used a paper day planner. So when I had a consultation or was trying to book someone in, I could open a physical day planner, and I had all these appointments already written, but the appointments were bogus. It was my workout. It was lunch. It was computer shit I had to do, program writing, but they never read what they said. They just saw arrows, and I used highlighters. They made it look good. And I would sit down. I was like, all right, I have 2 hours. I got 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. What do you want? And my whole day was full of nothing. Old shreds of newspaper and apple cores. But it's just like hearing you talk about that. The thing that it makes me think about it is, with all of us, it's an ability to make a decision. Like, you're like, I am going to train because that's why I'm here. And it's this idea of like BPAC comes in, you've done a whole session and you're training with Marcus, Hayden, Jordan, Steffi, and then BPAC comes in and wants to deadlift and you say, yeah, sure. But there's an element of that isn't necessarily not a fear of failure, but it's an acceptance of anything can happen. And I think that's something we probably all share, that I think a lot of trainers, unfortunately, when they're not training clients or they're asking how to get started, there's just probably a lot of experience without having an opportunity to fail. And that creates this anxiety. And it's like, I don't want to start until I know what it's like to get rejected or to fail or to not accomplish this Instagram worthy thing. But I think for us, like, we've been in this before. There was tiles and stories and reels where it's like you could fail with a high level of anonymity.
Yes, and you just mentioned about the Instagram thing. It is. I mean, listen, we all have to add a little bit of fluff in there, right? That sales and marketing piece. But when you peel back all the layers, right? Like, you look at our training. Like, is it really that exciting? Like, come on, man. Like, is it really like if we were there to film like every movement that you or I or Jordan would do for the year, like you're going to see a lot of the same repetitive shit over and over and over. And that's the part of the industry I kind of wish that would change, because I feel like if people understood the importance of just being boring and just getting really good at the basics, like I even say in business, it's like, come on, man, like you can't, like, you're talking to me about carb cycling right now and you've been eating Wendy's and McDonald's every day. Like, come on, get off of it. Like, let's just focus on food quality and hydration. And let's just start there. Like, everyone's just, I think our priorities are off in life in general. And I think it's fascinating to me that you take a billionaire in business who have become so successful at becoming great, world-class in that area of business. And in my eyes, like, you know, if they're sitting there and their body fat's, you know, if they're morbidly obese and they're sitting there and they have no muscle and they're not strong and their body's weak and they're complaining about being fat and out of shape, I'm like, well, why don't you just take the same approach that you took in business, right? Yeah. Like, what was it really? Like, you had a plan in mind. You wrote it down, right? Like, this is what I want to do. And you kind of like, well, what do I do and want to do in that business? And, you know, you kind of hear that line, it gets overplayed, that start at the finish thing, which is like, okay, like, I get it. But it's the monotony of sitting there and being great at the boring shit that happens every day. It could be taking one of your courses, right? Like, and someone's not getting it. Like, just like, be present, be great at just focusing on the boring stuff. And no one does that, right? Like, everyone's so far ahead. I mean, even with like the scale, like the most basic thing, like, I'm not losing 20 pounds. Like, stop focusing on that. It reminds me of someone who's just going to look at their bank account going, I want to be worth $10 million. My bank account's not growing. Why not? Why not? Why not? And stressing themselves out. I'm like, because you're not doing anything. Yeah. Like, you're not putting any effort into making the bank account grow. You're just sitting there complaining about it. It's no difference with these people with whatever their health, fitness, and wellness goals are. So I really believe this is all 100% mental. I think we need to simplify everything in life, whether it's business, whether it's love, whether it's relationships, family, our health, our wellness. We need to simplify. We need to get basic. We need to get a little bit more granular and just say to ourselves, let's set a plan. What do we have to do today to be great? And just fucking go in there and crush it, man. Just like, kill today. Look at yourself in the mirror like Dirk Diggler, bare ass naked with a schlong hanging out, and just saying, like, I'm a star, I'm a big, bright, shining star. At the end of the day, go to bed, feel good about yourself, and then hit repeat the next day. And I think it's that simple of a formula. I'm just shocked that people aren't actually onto that yet.
I think when it comes to the mundane, when it comes to the day-to-day, when it comes to like the quote-unquote boring stuff, the thing that I've learned from you the most, and I've learned more than you could ever know, is the conversation. Yeah. Watching you interact with people, because that's something that we take for granted. As much as we could take for granted, like, oh, you just do back squats all the time, and here's your program, it's real simple. Or these are your foods that you eat. These are the foods that you don't eat. As mundane as that can be, conversation has become so mundane and overlooked because people don't have an ability to be present, be aware, be in the room.
They're not listening.
To watch you talk to someone. And then I guess there's a question coming off the back of this long-winded compliment, is because to watch you interact with, because that was what we met through Ben at a steakhouse in New York. It was all you can eat.
Plataforma. It was love at first sight, man.
It was. We sat down, but because you were in the fucking room. We were in the room. Dude, it was me and you.
Jordan, you're like my little brother. Jordan, honestly, I consider you family. I love you, man. Like, you call me tomorrow, you say I'm in trouble, I'm jumping off
I'm
a bridge.
probably going to, because it wouldn't be the first
but,
and last time I've done it. But because, dude, we were at a table. I still remember because we connected almost like this.
Yeah.
There was like, I'm not going to name names, but there was a dude at the
weird
table
people.
and we were both just like, and no one else
You're
saw it
like-
because everyone, was like, are you seeing this
yeah.
too? Are you hearing this? Because we were at a table of 8 people, maybe 9 people, and you were the only other person at the table. Right. So my question.
We just had a great.
Well, yeah, because
awesome.
you were
It was
present,
so
and
fun.
like to talk about being good at the mundane. Like you're Lundy, you're great at this. You're great at this. People are different after they've spoken to you. Their trajectory of their day changes, right?
That's interesting. Thank you. It's a big compliment, but thank you.
But I've just seen it, man. Like I've been in Drive with inject any. I'm not going to name drop because we could literally turn a podcast into.
You can.
But like I've seen people who probably have a hard time having a single person come in and change the trajectory of their day. Right? A-list celebrities, like people can't walk down the fucking street, and you can have a conversation with them and change the trajectory of at least their day. Have you ever been in a situation where that has made you nervous? Where entering into a conversation, like, you've billionaires, celebrities, politicians, have you ever walked into a room, and you don't have to name names, but like, have you ever walked into a room? Because I have it sometimes. Like some of my clients or someone texts me, like, "Holy fuck, this dude is a dude. Like this is a guy. Like don't fuck this up." Have you ever?
I don't think. I mean, it's a fact. No one's ever asked me that question, and I thought for a second, and it's gonna. I mean, I've got a terrible answer for you. It's all. I feel bad saying it, but off the top of my head, no.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't like. I've worked. I could talk about it now. I've worked with Mike Bloomberg. I mean, I've walked into his apartment, and I've worked with everyone from Calvin Klein to, I mean, some of the biggest names in the world. Some people I can't talk about for some reason. When I get into a room with them, I understand that, they're coming to me because they need a service, right? Like there is a need, and it actually makes me feel good to think that of everyone in the world that they can go after, I was highly recommended to go and deliver to them that service. So my objective in that 1 hour is not to try and set a world record. It's to allow them to go from thinking about me as a luxury, right? Like, oh, training's a luxury, to the hour I leave, an hour later, it's suddenly a necessity, right? And that's been my business model with coaching. It's like, let's go from making them think about you as a luxury to a necessity. Suddenly this becomes about, this is part of my survival. This is part of my life. When I think about something health, wellness, fitness, Don Saladino is the ultimate connector. He can get me, he'll get me an MRI turned around in the next 2 hours. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, he's going to pull it off from us. And I prided myself on that, up until this day in my life. So I don't know if I've ever gone into a situation where someone's hired me to do the job I'm calling it now, right? Like I'm some like mercenary. And I don't think I've ever been hired to do the job where I've walked into the situation nervous. Because I think I've come to understand that a lot of times they're meeting me and they're in this vulnerable position of like, all right, what's in store right now? Is this guy trying to kick the living shit out of me? Is he trying to be a hero? And I tell him, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna under exceed your expectation today. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, if you're expecting me to beat the living crap out of you, it ain't happening. I'm like, and I'm telling you that out of the gate, it ain't happening. Like, I'm gonna sit down, we're gonna get to know each other a little bit. I got some questions. I'm gonna screen you. If I see any red flags, I'm getting my man Charlie Weingroff here to take a look at you. We're gonna get you moving. We're gonna get you feeling good. We're gonna get you out of here. And then we're gonna become pretty close if you're interested in what it is that I actually do and you wanna be a part of this. And they're suddenly like, holy shit. And I just go in and I do me. And then that's it. And then I become a part of their lifestyle. And that really started with me and Hugh Jackman. And I knew that 14, 15 years ago. I mean, I'm 44 now, so I was in my 20s. And I knew there was no social media. Like, I got in front of Hugh and he's like, oh man, I got to get you into this publication, that publication. I looked at it and I was like, man, don't worry about it. I'm like, don't, like, we got a job right now. Let's just get you. And I remember publications used to call me up, and at the time I was like, no, we're not doing it. Maybe very stupid. I don't know. Maybe not, because it was that type of privacy and exclusivity that then forced them all to start referring more people. And then this one came in. And every week, man, it's like, The Rock's training in my gym. Sandra Bullock's up there. Jennifer Aniston is training with me. It's like all this, it got to a point where it was so ridiculous to go in there and see the people and just for the first time probably in a long time for them, they were treated like just the average Joe on the street. No one pulled out a camera because I throw them out. I would legitimately go up to a member. It's happened maybe twice in 15 years. I said, if you do that again, we're gonna ask you to leave and you're not welcome back. And they were like, holy shit, like this fucking guy's crazy, right? But it was that type of attitude. It was that type of approach that allowed them to come in, and suddenly they're taking their shirts off and they're changing in the lobby and they're treating it like it's their home. And that to me gave me a lot of pride. So yeah, I don't know, man. From a nervousness standpoint, I would say no. But on the other hand, you get me talking about politics in the public, I'd probably get nervous as shit because it's not something I'm very well geared in, you know? So I think it's all what we
But that's
know,
the underlying point. It's like knowing that you're here for a job and knowing that you can do the job, right? Because at that point when you're in the room with Hugh Jackman, you have done the job 10,000 times. Yeah. Right? So it's like back to your original point of like, put weights away, right? Or like, Mark, put the trash in the garbage can. Like that's where when like the high, because I call you know when you're a bat signal. Like if I'm going in every big meeting I've gone into for the last 2 years, Don knows. And Don, when I call, it's you busy? No. It's like I could hear Thanksgiving dinner going on in the background. Like, Don, carve the turkey.
But you know what? There's a few people in life that you get really drawn to that they can call you at 2 a.m. and you're going to drop everything for, Jordan. You and I have that relationship, and you know that. But you've look what you've done in the last 5-6 years. It's fascinating, right? Like it's also really inspiring. Like you see someone who's been at, and you admit it. You're like, you came from a no area in this industry, right? And now someone asked me the other day, and they're like, if you're who's the guy right now that you think who's like the up and coming person? And I say you 10 out of 10 times. So it's like,
well, because you're there to talk me off the ledge before I do some crazy shit. Like I'm gonna walk in, I'm gonna tell this guy, this is the price and this is how much you pay. You're like, whoa, hey, hold, like, yo, back it up, dog. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Get him, because you always say, what do you always say to me? Get him pregnant with the idea of you.
With the idea of you. And even now, people are like, well, what do you charge for training? I'm like, I don't take on clients. They're like, but what if someone came to you for a project? I'm like, well, listen, I'm assessing the situation. I'm not concerned with charging. Like, what am I going to charge? Whatever it is, $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour, $1,500. Like, does it really matter? Am I going to become rich on that? Or am I going to look at the opportunity and say to myself, all right, like, one, can my time facilitate this person's need? And two, like, maybe we can work something out besides money where I just maybe turn around and say, listen, man, like, for the work that you need done right now and the checkups, I got you. If you find a lot of value, maybe we'll do some social media or send me a check at the end of the year, right? And 10 out of 10 times it always pays out to be better anyway, because they just feel like, oh my God, this guy's really stepping up and doing stuff. So now, even from a coaching standpoint, I don't know. I think that's another problem too, is everyone's so focused. Like, I'm going to raise my rate's $25 an hour. I'm like, yeah, and what happens when that rate wears off? Because it will, right? Like I remember my first year at Equinox making $25,000 for the year. I was one of their more active trainers. And then I remember breaking off on my own, and I made triple that. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to make $100,000 as a trainer. Right. And then at that point it was like, all right, $125 an hour, $150 an hour, $250 an hour, $300 an hour, $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour, $1,200 an hour. I mean, I won't even go from there. I'll just draw the line. And you know what? At 10 out of 10 times, it loses its luster. Yeah. It's like, the money seems great, but then guess what? You start thinking about things differently when you're taking your family away and you're not working and you're not making money and you're spending the amount of money you would have been making on a trip, and you're like, holy shit, I'm in the red right now, double what I would have been, and you just start thinking differently. Like, how do I, like, what is going to give me enjoyment? Is it the money portion of it? Yeah, I want to make money. But I want to have purpose, man. I want to wake up every day and I want to love what I'm doing, and I want to feel that, like, let's go. Like, I need to have that, otherwise I'm dead.
Well, I think the currency that you can trade in, because obviously in fitness, like financially, the business, owning Drive, being able to pivot in the digital space, but I think the currency that you trade in better than anyone else is stories.
It's character, yeah.
Holy the fucking stories. And we don't have to get into them, but I think it's like,
no, we can say a couple.
It's a good horizon for people to shoot for. Like the relationships and the stories are something that when you sit around at the end of the day and all the checks are paid, what do you have left? And it's like, that's all I live for, is a great story. And fuck, do you have some, what are some like PG, I don't know, as comfortable as you are sharing and with like the anonymity clauses that come with the territory you work in, but what are some stories when you look back on your career, like, man, training got me to do this. Being good in a gym environment, one-on-one, reps and sets, I was able to take this here or work with this person or end up in this situation.
I think it was just cool. I mean, sometimes I found myself in situations where you're flying around the world and you're, in these environments where you're kind of saying to yourself, this is kind of cool that I'm here, right? Or, working with specific individuals that are really well known. I think being a part of that, I mean, getting witness to that lifestyle, I think was really interesting, but it's also it's very difficult. Like, I think a lot of people don't really look at how difficult. Wow, my Siri's going off right now. Sorry. I don't think the average person out there understands that, if you can't walk to the grocery store without someone picking up a phone or pointing it at you, yeah, it sounds like, oh, that would be fun for a day or two or maybe a year. But if it gets to a point where it's constantly in your face, you realize how, that environment could be really tough for some very well-known people, and all they want is their privacy. Like, I love that line from Meryl Streep. Someone approached her on the street, I think it went public, and they're like, "Oh my God, Meryl, I love your work. Would you mind if I have you take a picture of you?" And she went, "Oh my God, thank you so much, and I'm so sorry, I'm not working right now." Right? And it was like, you got to draw that line sometimes. And people are like, "Well, why can't you just stop and take the picture?" It's like, well, because there's got to be a line, and they got to have a life also. And it can't be where every second, I was out with a celebrity recently. We're at lunch in New York City. Someone went up to the person, very well-known Hollywood person, like very well-known. And can I have a picture? And my buddy had a piece of fish in his mouth. He's fucking eating fish. And he's like, "Listen, man, like, can I just eat?" And the kid kind of ran off, and I just kind of put my head down, and we kept eating, and we kept talking. The second the meal was over, he stood up. He walked inside. He looked at the guy. He goes, "Listen, my apologies, but let's get that picture now. I'm done eating." Right? And it's like, okay, like, that to me makes that was beautiful. I knew he was going to do that because I'd been in that situation with that person where I knew that was going to happen because he's so good. But why doesn't the general public know to basically allow that person to stop having their meal? Wait till they're done with their meal, or maybe if they're with their children, going to a Hollywood, to a Broadway show, maybe it's not the right time. Like, why is everyone so selfish to put themselves first and say, you know what, I'm going to interrupt this moment with their family because I need that picture? And to me, that's where I think I get more frustrated about it than them because they just want to, they're in Hollywood, they want to work. They want to make great movies, and they want to be with their family, and they want to, live life. And there's so many things that all these people I work with do from a charitable standpoint that I can't even talk about. Amazing stories of Hollywood actors. I can't even give names right now. Fuck, this sucks. But Hollywood actors showing up in the hospitals, when, someone needed a heart transplant and things getting done to where this woman's now living. Just great stories where you're like, oh my God, and they never wanted any recognition for it. They're not sitting there doing these things, posting on social media, being like, hey, look at what I did. No one ever heard that story. No one will ever hear that story. They'll never hear the name. And to me, that's what's impressive. And those are the stories that I love the most. It's the behind the scenes stuff. It was actually one story I will give you guys, one of my actor clients, very famous. We got a call about a young man, 37 years old, pancreatic cancer, 6 months to live. And make a long story short, he was a huge Yankee fan. My client turns around and walks in the office. He sees me upset. He's like, what's up? I said, so-and-so. Told him this story. He goes, well, who do we know on the Yankees? Make a long story short, we're able to get in touch with Alex Rodriguez. And, we surprise the young man. We bring him down from Albany for a doctor's appointment and bring him into A-Rod's building on the west side. And A-Rod shows up and, walks down, gets out of the elevator in a suit, bat, jersey, signed balls, and spent about an hour with this young man, right? And, his name was Alan, and Alan passed away a few months later. And in his coffin, he was holding, Alex's bat and ball and all that stuff. And it was just to think about just that little gesture, right? And my client who was able to go out and start making phone calls and doing certain things, It's very tough for me because I get reached out to every day to do this, and I wish I could. I can't. When people reach out to me about it, I almost have to ignore the message. I just can't. I can't be that intrusive. But when you hear about the stories of these people going and stepping up and not ever wanting any recognition for it, to me, that's the best story. And that's the most impressive. And it's like, that's what I admire and I look up to. Now, on the other hand, we have some really funny stories at Drive. Things happen with non-celebrities that we could spend literally a whole episode on.
Tone,
And you're like, did
tone,
that really
tone in
happen?
the locker room.
Tone in the locker room. Yes, walking around. So yeah, actually, Tone in the locker room, walking around naked one day, and a member saw what he was packing, and this guy was 80 years old, and I found him screaming in the locker room, like he saw like Tone had some animal hanging from between his legs. So stuff like that, or a female member walking out complaining that another female member was having some fun on herself in the steam room, and we had to have a conversation with this lady on the way out of the club. So stuff like that you hear, and it's fun, and it's like, okay, that's a funny story. It's a lot of laughs, but all in all, man, it's with what's going on with the hiring process now and what's going on in the city, and I'm blessed to be out of there. It was a good situation for me. My lease expired May of 2020. My 15-year lease expired in May, and I launched a few little projects, and they did really well in conjunction with things I already had my foot on the gas with. So it ended up working out well for me, and I'm very humble about it, and I'm very keeping my head down and continuing to work, because we never know if it's always going to be here or not. But all I can control is what's in front of me right now, and just keep trying to surround myself with great people and have a good time and make some money,
Damn. Well, I don't know if we could end it on a better note than that.
Yeah, seriously.
I think this is an accurate cross section of the man, the myth, the legend. I know you're busy. I'm not going to take any more time. Although I will take a lot of your time in a few weeks, because I'm going to be sitting right next to you early January. So I'm looking forward to that.
Training, filming. I got some hockey set up, some Islander games set up. We're going to have a good time. We're gonna eat some food. Yeah, come on, man. We're gonna come. Anytime your boys in Toronto or up in New York, have them give me. I'd love to have you guys out here, man. We'll have some fun.
Of course, man.
Well, Don, you guys need, you let me know. Thank you.
I appreciate everything, man. We'll see you soon. Hi to the family. Good luck with the renos.
Thanks so much,
All right, brothers. Thanks, guys.